Welcome to First Reading, the Old Testament lectionary podcast for preachers and teachers. My name is Rachel Wren, and I am the Interim Dean of Trinity Lutheran Seminary at Capital University here in Columbus. Today, I am bringing you preaching tips on the text for Sunday, July 20th, Genesis 18, verses 1 through 10a. This is our summer shorts series, so you've got just a little bite-sized episode, and we'll give you just a couple of quick tips. So first of all, my first note is that you've got an opportunity here. So we are working with the thematic readings, but the thematic readings for both July 20th and July 27th are somewhat consecutive. So you've got Genesis 18, 1 through 10a this week, and next week you've got Genesis 18, 20 to 32. So if you're looking for setting up some consistency, this is a nice way to do it. You can do one on the beginning of the story of Abraham and Sarah with God at Mamre, and then the continuation of the story next week. If you're going to preach on this, though, I've got a couple of things for you to think about. First of all, decide who you're preaching on, or maybe which character in the story gives you the best lens for your sermon. If you're making the point and it comes from like something in Abraham's perspective, then stop at verse 10a. That's totally fine. By stopping there, the story really focuses on Abraham. If, however, you're going to preach on something that comes from Sarah's perspective, give Sarah her due. Read the whole story, the whole pericope, not just the little bit they give you here. All you have to do is add in 5 verses. Just go through verse 15, and you've got the rest of Sarah's story, and it gives you a nice base for your sermon, a nice meaty base. Okay, point number 2. Think carefully before you jump to the gospel lesson on this one. I understand why they paired it this way. The theme that's being chosen is the meal preparation thing, especially meal preparation in service of God. When you do that, though, what happens is you create a foil or a juxtaposition between either Martha and Sarah, or Martha and Abraham, or maybe Mary and somebody else. And if you do that, then it's not clear who is who in the story and really who's supposed to be critiqued. With the Mary and Martha story, you've got 2 New Testament women, one who traditionally has been understood as being critiqued by Jesus. That doesn't play very well in a comparison with this story because if you compare the 2 stories, you have to decide who, Abraham or Sarah, is comparable to Martha. And if you're deciding that, you're deciding which person is going to be critiqued by God. And both options are problematic because they smack of either sexism or anti-Semitism or both. So if you're going to dabble preaching in the Old Testament text, stick with it. At least don't jump to that particular Luke narrative. Okay, talk about a preaching angle. Oh my gosh, I love this story so much. I'm sure I said this 4 years ago or 5 years ago whenever we covered this one for First Reading. But this story is so funny. It's rife with comedy. I mean, all you have to do as you're either reading it or preaching on it is ask your congregation to picture it. Abraham is 100 years old. Sarah is 90 years old. And the text says over and over and over again that they get up and run places. They are like, and it's not like they were I mean, they both say when God tells them that they're going to have a child, they're both like, how can a 100-year-old person have a child? How can a 90-year-old woman have a child? Like, they're still pretty old, but it's hilarious if you read it through that sort of age lens. And in the Hebrew, the emphasis is on speed. Normally, the sentence structure starts with verb and then subject. So in the verse that starts with, and Abraham ran into the tent, you would expect it to say, ran Abraham into the tent. What it actually does is put the object first, and into the tent ran Abraham. So it's just this emphasis on this chaos and speed. Okay, here's my preaching point. The preaching point is to really focus on the 3 measures of flour. The Hebrew word here translated as measure is se'im, which is the plural of se'ah. So Abraham urges Sarah to leaven 3 se'ahs of flour. In his 2015 Working Preacher commentary, Roger Nahm says that 3 se'ahs equates to roughly 22 liters of flour, which is about 2 pounds, which in our terms, if you're thinking like a sandwich loaf of bread, it's like 3 to 4 loaves of sandwich bread. Just think about this for a minute. Sarah and Abraham aren't eating. They are preparing the meal entirely for their guests. So that means there were 3 or 4 loaves of bread for 3 people. It was an absurd amount of food, even to make for a feast for a guest. It's an absurd reaction to God's presence. It's an absurd baking reaction to, one might say, the kingdom of God. And that's where you can jump to the New Testament, because that sounds familiar. Luke 13:20-21. And again, Jesus said, "To what should I compare the kingdom of God? It is like yeast that a woman took in and mixed with 3 measures of flour until all of it was leavened." It's a different Greek word in the Luke than it is in the Septuagint of Genesis, but just think about it for a minute. The kingdom of God comes near and leavens everything it touches in Luke. The kingdom of God comes near Sarah and Abraham in Genesis, and all of a sudden, things are getting leavened. Life is literally bubbling up inside of Sarah. What is happening in your life that bears the bubbles of the bread of life? Happy preaching, preachers.